Welcome back. This is Caveman from eBay. I sell slot cars, Artins, and some other brands from time to time, but mostly the Artin brand. And I'm here to take and just help people out with buying the right kind of cars for their tracks, and or deciding which track to go with if they're buying just replacement pieces as far as a track, or they're buying a track set that I possibly have made up and put on sale as far as out of bulk. That's how I build all my tracks. There's out of bulk materials. Still new, but they're all bulk. I have boxes and boxes of track. So that's how they come to you. This way you kind of have an idea of what kind of track you're buying and what it can and can't do for you. So that's one of the reasons you'll see actually on all of my ads that I have placed on eBay that I don't do returns. And it's not because I don't take care of my customers. It's just I'm the guy that takes and sells for less, absolutely sells for less, and I don't have a lot of room to take and, play around, if you want to call it that, and take and start eating the return shipping costs, things like that. If you have a bad product, it's actually bad, I will absolutely take care of you. That's a guarantee. But I will not take returns because you order the wrong stuff. It's nothing against the person. It's just that I can't afford that kind of hits back on the site as far as it goes. I don't make a whole lot of money, but then again, I don't charge a whole lot of money. When you can buy a brand new working slot car for as little as $225 and $245, there's no squeeze room there. I don't do it intentionally. I don't take and send you something that you don't want. You just kind of have to know a little bit about what kind of car you're wanting, and that's what I'm trying to take and do today, is explain some of that so that those problems no longer exist. Anyway, the first one I'm going to go to is a Power Passer track. Now the Power Passer track, as you'll see, this here is the crossover for a Power Passer track. And other than the obvious, brightness of the arrows and such that are on there, if you look real closely, the metal does not go all the way across like you would see in some of the regular standard Artin crossover tracks, okay? There's a difference. When the Power Passer car comes down this lane, and if the person wants to change lanes, well, let me go from the other side. That's where the arrows are pointing. If they want to change lanes, they're coming down through here, and if they want to, they slow down a little bit, and as the car slows, it will absolutely go over to the other side and continue on in the race. Come up right behind the other guy if that's what you want to do. If you're coming up here and you do not want to change lanes, at this point in this junction, what you take and do is you just go faster. When you go faster, it just pops right over this little piece that's here because the guide pin is spring-loaded, and it continues on the track. Now some people like them, some people don't like them that much. It's kind of to each their own, but that is a Power Passer track. That is the only real difference in the track itself, because if you take the transformer and these two pieces of track off of your Power Passer track, connect a regular transformer to that same track, you have a standard Artin track. These are the only things that change it. This is what you have to take and make the Power Passer track work. You can't make a Power Passer track work as far as that goes and make those cars pass without these two items. You do not take and put only one down. You have to do them in pairs. If you have 2 lanes and you're running a track and you want to have 4 different locations, you can put all 4 in place, but you can't put 3. So, and that's how they're designed and set up to take and run. Anyway, that is the Power Passer track. Now, the transformer, here's the big giveaway. This is the module that plugs in for a Power Passer track, and it's got the letters A and B on there. We'll get to that in just a moment about the A and B, but that's a dead giveaway that's a Power Passer transformer, okay? It puts out AC current, okay, onto the track, but that's one of the reasons the Power Passers work like they do. Now, as far as this here goes, if you plug this into a regular track, it's just not going to work. It will not run your cars like it's supposed to at all. Okay, so if you see this A and B and you have a regular Artin car and you're trying to run it on a track, just not going to take and work well for you. So just keep that in mind. That's what the Power Passer one looks like. But this A and B will not be here on a regular one. And if it's a standard, you will see nothing on there. It will be all black, and it'll also actually have a place here for a small fuse. But the appearance in general is exactly the same, except for that A and B. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This is for a Power Passer track only. Now the cars, or trucks in some cases, but very few trucks as far as Power Passers go, they okay, these three cars are all power passers, but you see that spring? All right, that is the guide pin, and that's a spring that keeps it spring loaded. Let's see if I can do this here. And you can see that the guide pin will bounce up and down there. Okay, and like I was saying before, when it goes over that lane, if it's going slow, it kind of hangs down and it changes the lane. If it's going fast, it just pops up real fast and stays straight. So that's something you have to take a notice. Now, here's another difference of a power passer car. If you look right here, you see that? That's not a resistor or capacitor, that's a diode. Alright, now diodes restrict the voltage from going one direction or another, and they are normally put into AC circuits, which again, the power passer tracks are set up for. So this particular one, right, you see that ring on it? Okay, the ring itself actually, it stops the voltage from coming this direction, okay, and on the other side it lets the voltage in. Alright, now I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's what a diode can do. If you have 4 of them, you can make a bridge rectifier. But that's not where we're going to get to. The bottom lines, this is what you'll see on the inside of a power passer car. And also this capacitor right here, okay, up on top. Now, all power passers do not have lights, but all power passers have this capacitor here and a diode on this side or the other to include this spring. And on the underneath side, okay, this here pin will be yellow or red. And let me see if I can find it. Okay, let's see if I can find this close, get this close enough. Right there is the letter A. Okay, remember what I have mentioned and shown on the transformer? This is an A car for a power passer track. 2 A cars cannot run on a power passer track at the same time. You have to have an A and a B for it to all work like it's supposed to. Okay, an A and a B. So if I mention something about do you want a yellow pin or a red pin, okay, the A or the car, if you tell me which car you have and it has a red pin, I'll know that you need an A chassis if you're buying a replacement chassis. Now as far as the motors are actually the same. Now how they get away with all that I'm not sure, but these motors, I've checked them. If I take all this here stuff off, unsolder it and just run wires down to it, and in this case, if you were converting a power passer car to a regular Artin car, you could take a wire from here and you want to cross it down to here, and from this side and cross it here. Do a crisscross down here to the brads, alright? And that car will absolutely run just like a standard Artin car on an Artin track. No problems whatsoever. It'll run great for you, okay? But if all this good stuff is in there, it's not going to run worth a darn on a regular Artin track. Okay, they're great little cars. Some of them are different designs, etc. This particular one had this here body on it. Now, this is another thing. Sharp body, all that kind of stuff, right? Gleams as far as that goes, looks nice. But what you'll notice, and it's a little bit hard to see, but right here, there's this embedded circle, okay? That circle is designed to let that spring go up into place, okay? And in this car, it's actually designed to let that happen and let it have lights, all right? Now, if you take a power passer and you try to take and hook it up to a regular car, for instance, like a Lamborghini, the Lamborghini itself, okay, is just right here. It's too low to accept that capacitor. Now, if you wanted to do some modifications, you could take that capacitor and try to get it down out of the way, maybe modify it to where you can move it a little bit and get it from not hitting the top of the car, all right? That's problem one. Now the other problem is the Lamborghini does not have the small indentation to hold that spring down in the place, and in fact that spring would be right about here, and as you can see that the front of that hood is going down in an awful slope. There's just not enough room to do it, okay? If you take the spring out of the car, the guide pin will still work, but it won't work like it's supposed to, and you'll have problems. So anyway, that explains in general the power passer car. And what you'll notice here, all right, this one here with the diode, looking at the car from at the front, if the diode's on the right, okay, more than likely it should take and always show that it's an A car, okay? If the diode is set here to the right but going straight down and not crossed over like the other, it should show, where is it at? And it does, a B. Alright, kind of hard to see, but they'll always be there as far as for the power passer cars themselves. But the rest of the car, like I say, is the same. These wheels will move from one to the other as far as that goes, as far as standard. But what you'll notice here, the difference is that this here is soldered in. Okay, the motor is just not laying down to the brass clips that they can allow the voltage to get from the track up to the motor. And the motor, instead of being turned around upside down, where these contacts actually touch those brass clips there, it's up, so it can be wired for a power passer car. Now that's a power passer. Some people claim that the power passer motors run a little bit faster and a little bit smoother than some of the standard ones. They're not supposed to, but you know, that's what they're saying, so I'll just mention that for you. All right, the next thing, next type of car, just keep that in mind. Power passers work great. They work on power passer tracks. Yes, you can convert them, but you will have to convert them to make them work on a standard Artin track. Just keep that in mind for me. And that way you don't order the wrong stuff. I don't want no one to order the wrong stuff. I'd like you to get exactly what you're needing. Next one is Deegan. All right, and now that's kind of a popular one back in the day. Not as popular these days, but they're still out there. A lot of old tracks are out there, and a lot of people are having problems running their cars, maybe because they, you know, their guide pins got busted off, etc., etc., and without those guide pins, you can't run them. A Deegan car uses a particular guide pin, all right, and that guide pin is designed. Where they came up with Deegan, by the way, I have no idea, but that guide pin, you'll notice that these here gaps, where here for the slot itself, look a little bit more narrow, and they are at the top. But when you take and get this, it's kind of hard to see. You'll notice that there's a little ledge. It's deeper on the, or wider down at the bottom there, but the guide pin slides up underneath that and it hangs itself, in other words. So when the car comes around, those guide pins are actually in that slot, not just running in it. They're in and locked. So it really does not matter how fast that car is going. You'd be amazed. And one day I'll have a Deegan track probably for sale that I will take and show you exactly how fast they can go without wrecking. But it's like ludicrous how fast they go around these corners. Some people like that. In some cases, it kind of takes all the showmanship out of it, and the guys that are out there racing, or the kids, you know, they want to take and drift from time to time, things like that. And on a Deegan track, it doesn't let you drift. But there's a secret. You can take and remove the back pin of a Deegan car and put it on the same track, and yes, it's going to hold the track very well. It's not going to bounce up out of this here, but you can take and do a little bit of drifting with those cars. So the Deegan track itself, all right, a lot of times, but not always, a lot of times it's white. The easiest way to take and tell a Deegan track, the very first thing you'll take a notice is that when you see the gap itself, is you can see through it. There's light coming from the other side. If you take and pick up another white track that is not a Deegan track, you don't see anything like that. And the slot itself is wide. It is not capped off with a T or anything like that. So this particular track, even though it's white, is not a Deegan piece of track. It's just standard track that happens to be white. So even though that's a black and white piece of track laying there, both of those are standard track. All right, they'll run all standard cars on there, no problems whatsoever. Now the standard track will run the Deegan cars simply because they won't lock down as tight as we would on a regular Deegan track, but they will take and run on the track because fits the slots no problem, and the car itself is designed for that same voltage. Now, when it comes to the Deegan car, there are very few differences, but they're there. And the biggest one, no matter what car you take and pick up or truck, is that it has two guide pins. All right. Now, in some case, or many cases back in the day, except in very few, the silk magnet itself was silver. All right, which is a rare earth magnet compared to the black ones. And you know, that's light and day as far as what they look like. This is a regular magnet. It does take and do the job, but it does not hold it as well as the silver magnets. It just hands down doesn't. But what that magnet will take and do for you is let that car grab hold of that track. What's kind of funny with the Deegan cars is, you know, they really shouldn't even need that magnet because they have this dual pin system. And those, if you look real close, see if I can get it to show itself, those pins kind of look like a wedge. It's rounded at the bottom that drops into that slot, and then, like I say, it can't get pulled out of it because it has that little bit of a T there. So it stays embedded into the track, and so the car stays on the track itself. The car itself, when you turn it over, some will take and have a wire that goes back here. That's a light, and I guess they're pushing out a little bit of light off the back, kind of a ground effects type thing. And then some will also have a light coming out the front, and some will not. Some will have no lights at all, and then some will have the lights. Now, the tires and the rims can be all kinds of different. This is off of one of those little yellow trucks that I have, and they put that kind of tire on there. But also some of the cars, here's another Deegan example, all right, that has lights in front and rear, and the silver magnet, and again, 2 guide pins. Basically the same car, and by the way, they're not always blue, all right. In fact, most of them were black, but the rims are different. So that's another thing. You can't take and say I need some Deegan rims or some Deegan tires, because they're big differences. And a lot of times I've seen Deegan cars that actually had the standard wheels on them. It wasn't nothing fancy about it. It looked like any other car, just standard wheels, and it worked fine. So basically, the Deegan cars, a lot of them worked on battery powered. I sell the transformers that convert those, of course, but they run on a basics of 6 volts, and they'll run in general on their Deegan tracks, of course, and hold the track like crazy, or they can run on a regular track, and because of that silver magnet, it does make a difference. So it just kind of to each their own, and when they get the car, they'll know the difference of the silver magnets versus the older type, and they can make whatever decisions they want as far as that goes. Now, again, the Deegan car will work on a regular track. The Deegan car will not work on a power passer track. And a power passer track absolutely won't work on a Deegan track, even if you convert everything, simply because that guide pin is completely round. There is no flat to it. And if it doesn't have that flat with the T at the bottom of it, it is not going to allow the pin to even go into the track. So that's why you can't use them on there, unless you change the pins. The guide pins themselves are changeable, and you can take and do that, and I do sell them. And if you'll notice, see if I can get it just on something dark enough, when I turn it, see how it's flat there and then it gets skinny? That's how it runs through the track right there. The round guide pins are the same size as the bottom of that. In other words, they look, regular ones look similar to this, completely round but a lot thicker. Alright, so there's the problem with the Deegan track, a regular car trying to do it. Now I have thousands of these things, so if you have a Deegan track and you just need to take and convert some of your cars so they'll run on it, grab these pins from me, hook and plug them in there, right? You'll be able to run the track no problems, hands down. But that's the difference. You do not have to have a Deegan car to do that. Also, you do not have to have a Deegan car to do dual pins. On a lot of the things I think I have a video that shows installing a second pin at the very back, and that's easy enough done. Just look for the video, it indicates that. And you can take and put a double pin on there, and you can take and run that same car that was not designed for a Deegan track at all whatsoever, and put it onto a Deegan track after you drill the second hole, put the 2 guide pins in, and off down the track you go as far as on the Deegan track. And it'll be something that's hard to find, because Deegan, I don't think they're really actually making that exact track anymore. So, everything that you find is either old new stock or vintage or, used, of course. So, install that second pin on any car, use Deegan guide pins, you can run it on your old track, hands down, no problems. That's also what some of those cars will take and go up on loops, and they can actually just stop on the loop, completely upside down. Why? Because that Deegan pin holds them in place completely. So that's enough on the Deegan cars. The last is the standard cars. Now, there's lots of different chassis. Some differences are obvious and some are not. Now, for whatever reason, they came out with this car or this chassis, and what you'll see and notice is that it has 2 pins on it. But guess what? It is not Deegan. It never was Deegan. And these are standard pins, okay? This is how the car came. And you'll also notice that that is a long ways away from here, even on the second pins that I suggest to take and put in. I suggested take and drill the hole right here, but this one's way at the back. Good and bad as far as on standard tracks. It does take and help it hold the track. The magnet is pretty strong. It's